Hi, everyone. I'm about to talk to Kirk Bresniker. He's from HPE. He's a fellow. He's also a chief architect there at HP Labs. We're going to have a fabulous and in-depth conversation around AI governance and ethics. Kurt has spearheaded an activity over at HP that everyone needs to hear and also digest and internalize. This is something that will be really helpful for everyone who is in charge with risk management, with governance, with compliance, and also just staking out the course for your corporation on how you want to govern how AI is both developed, deployed, and actually utilized. So it's a really great discussion. Please enjoy it, and let's get right to it. Kirk, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. Just finished watching your keynote at the summit. So just wanted to welcome you and actually do a little bit more of a deeper dive into the topics that you covered a little bit earlier today. And actually, for everyone who's watching, you can listen to Kirk's presentation if you didn't get it up on the it's the AInetworkingsummit.com website.
Thank you very much, Nick. It has been great to be here. Get back to Manhattan. First time in 5 years I've been in the island, and it feels like old home. So it's great to have the conversations that we've been having for the last 2 days.
Awesome. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I love Manhattan. Especially this time of year.
Beautiful.
What's so odd to me? It's odd, and I don't know why, but it's so intriguing. So I'm staying on the 42nd floor, of a hotel. And obviously you see the skyline of Manhattan, and it's magnificent, and every building was somebody's dream that they basically put their heart and soul, into. And then every once in a while, you'll get a flock of birds, and they're flying in between the canyons of New York. And it's that's kind of cool and weird at the same time.
I think I love the verticality, but I also think about everything below that infrastructure that has to be there to stitch all this thing, to have those high aspirations, takes that bedrock all the way down, drilling down to hit that bedrock so that it's something that you can count on, not just today or tomorrow, but this is going to be enduring.
It's, the whole stability, part of the city. And you're right, there's a city underneath the city. Not just the subway systems, but the sewer systems, the waterway systems, how water comes in and how it goes out. It's that's a wonderful engineering kind of problem that we never really see. We see the facade, of these beautifully architected, buildings, but underneath it is really where all the real civil engineering kind of work went into it.
So much of our constructed world and now so much of our virtual world is the same thing. We see the fantastic outcomes, and yet for those on the inside, we're also proud about the parts that you don't see that make it as seamless and as carefree as it's become.
Yeah, I knew we were going with a nice segue there, so thanks for that. So a couple of key things. One, your talk, I thought, was the most challenging one to do here, because you talked about governance, ethics around AI, and then also boiling those down into principles that both HP can use, and then also providing leadership for other corporations, governments, can use in this as well. So that's a hard topic, because it's so wide, it's so varied. So you have to come up with language and ideas that are kind of capture the essence, and then you have to try to put it into action, but it can't be too tight of an action either. So it had to be and you were doing it within a working group, of multiple different stakeholders. That had to be a really hard process to go through.
It certainly is one I personally underestimated when I started with that blank sheet. Actually, I had an advantage. At the top of that sheet, I got to write our purpose, Hewlett Packard's Enterprise's purpose is to advance the way that people live and work. If you come to our global headquarters in Houston, you'll see it up on the wall, right? Our CEO, Antonio Neri, he'll tell you probably within the first 5 minutes if you get a chance to talk to him. And he has it literally etched on the wall for all of us to see. As those engineers are coming in, as our business leaders are coming into our global headquarters, there's the reminder. So we got to put that at the top. But then how do you then derive principles that govern, principles that assist, that engage with everyone, and this is really everyone in our business, not just the engineers. It's also every single function, every single operational team. We're all trying to understand this. So to come up with some principles authentic to us, because certainly you can search for AI ethics principles, you'll get a million hits. But one of the first things we determined, let's start with our purpose and then derive principles that are authentic to us. Now, I originally gave us 5 weeks, 6 weeks maybe, 1 week of principle, and a week to wrap up. I think we'll be done in a month and a half. It took us a year, and we argued about every single word in the most positive way possible, because it was an active debate. And just as you said, we had someone from every geography, we had someone from every line of business, from every function, research, advanced development, production, services, support. That entire pipeline was represented in that community that really fought it out. And in the end, we got to those 5 principles: privacy preserving and secure, human focused, inclusive, robust, and responsible. Those are our 5 principles, and in each underneath there is a simple sentence. But now there's 5 years of accumulated wisdom about how to live out those principles in every aspect of our business operations. And that's really what we've been doing, since we wrote the principles. Again, it took me a little bit longer, but I'm glad we started when we did, because that was back in 2019. The world was just beginning to scratch the itch on AI, and it has exploded since generative AI took off in November 22.
Yeah, it's like, that was kind of like the match that kind of lit the fire, and everyone had the aha moment, and then obviously we saw the ramp up, from there, and it just really was what is the art of the possible, and now the extrapolation of that is really, it's kind of exciting how, people are now just kind of envisioning how AI will evolve and how it will impact society. But I think what you provided this morning was kind of like, I'm from the Northeast, so we like lighthouses, so you provided the lighthouse, kind of the guiding light as to, okay, well, here is a model that every corporation can use, a process, and also what your outcome is. Because we've had lots of this kind of discussion from GRC kind of executives, like within the ONU community, come in and starting to talk about this because they wanted to get ahead. They knew they had to get ahead of their developers. And so they've actually been holding their developers back until they've actually put in those kinds of policies around governance and ethics and what the guardrails are. I don't think they've taken it as far as you guys have taken it, but so I think there's some really good learnings there for them. But I think what they were all concerned about is that they looked at the DevOps arc, over the last 10 years, and so all of a sudden the DevOps stuff, it was immensely important and also beneficial because it hastened the development of software, but also it didn't have the guardrails in place either. And so a lot of cloud sprawl occurred, a lot of expense overrun, a lot of software was built without, right security procedures in place and so forth. And so there was also a good amount of time of cleanup, and fixing that. So I think a lot of them want to try to get ahead of that. And I think your model enabled them to actually start, either look at what they're doing and they can compare what they're doing to what you guys have.
But certainly there's that aspect. All too often, engineering is a process of remorse and remediation. You did your best. Then something happened. Maybe it was something you should have foreseen. Maybe it's something you couldn't foreseen, and then you have to go back and fix. And that's certainly what we wanted to enter into. And I think you used an important word earlier, which was about values. And for us, the process we went through, I think that's what I like to share. Now, an individual company, if you don't project your values, your corporate values, the values of your team members, of your shareholders, of your leadership team into your AI outcomes, well, then frankly, you're leaving it open and someone else's values are going to be in their place. So for us, that's what we really wanted to do, create principles that were authentic to us. And we did that by that process of discernment and debate. We had fantastic support from our global ethics and compliance team to lead us through what a governance process would be like. But then we were able to convene across every operation and business someone who wanted to join in that healthy debate and then end up with principles that we can really aspire to. And of course, we're doing the hard work now, which is living up to those principles.
Yeah, that's hard. It is because there's always interpretation, of things. And I think, obviously everyone wants to do the right thing. And sometimes, those ideals, might fall a little bit short. So it's good that it's got to be a living document,
Absolutely.
a living process, so.
One other thing that's been interesting is when we first released the principles, I got to go teach a class at every year we have our pre-sales solution architect training event, both for our own and all of our partner pre-sales architects, get them all together, train them on all the new stuff. And I came in and I was going to teach the class on our principles, and one of my fellow Hewlett Packard Enterprise fellows who was in the pre-sales solution organization, he asked the hard questions. Are you really going to stand between me and a sales opportunity? And I says, no, I don't want to stand between you. I want to stand next to you, and I want to have a conversation with you. Have you considered? So actually, we joined together, and he was that devil's advocate when I was teaching to the pre-sales solution architects to have that healthy debate. Because in the end, we don't want to say yes or no. We want to guide people to the principles, as you say, use them as the lighthouse, let them find their own path to that lighthouse. And if they get too far afield, then we've always reserved the right to throw the flag and say, hey, this might be a potential issue we want to escalate through the compliance organization. That hasn't happened in 5 years. Yeah. Now, what has happened is when the team has engaged with us, and they're talking about the solution sales architects team selling with partners to end customers, when they find out that we've actually gone through this process, it's actually facilitated the engagement with the customer.
Yeah,
because
I can see it.
They have to make the same arguments to their constituencies, especially when it's something that's human focused, when it has to do with individual safety, or especially when it's things like children or groups that are disadvantaged. How do we ensure that these great tools, great for the majority of the population, actually are inclusive of everyone? So that fact that we had gone through this process of discernment, we could talk about our principles and then how we learn to live up to them, engaging across company, that's actually become a powerful tool for the sales team to say, hey, you know what? If you need to have a conversation, if you want to have someone facilitate a conversation within your own organization about how you're ensuring that you're living up to your own values and they're reinforced in these AI technologies that are taking over so much knowledge work, we're there to help you. We'll talk about what we've done and then encourage you to be brave and also engage in that hard conversation.
Yeah, that's great. It's like if you're getting argument, and I don't mean argument in the pejorative, but you're getting like, okay, either difference of opinions or not quite getting it, and you're getting a lot of pushback, that means they're engaged. And that's healthy, and that should be. It's like they're if you're not getting anything, then you're like, okay, then no one's paying attention to it. So then that's actually nice to hear. That that the solutions architects, pre-sales are actually taking it to heart.
One of the most hotly debated topics as we're writing our principles.
Yeah, that would be great.
The question was, in our responsible principle, we said, AI systems should be open to challenge. So one, identify when an AI has been used to achieve a decision, and then leave an option open. And we got a little pushback there. And people were saying, are you saying that this is perhaps even literally a get-out-of-jail-free card? It's like, because of the current state of technology, and this will continue to advance as we gain more explainability, as we gain new technologies, we may be able to relax this. But for right now, this was back in 2019, for right now, we need to leave that door open. We need you to advertise that you've used AI, and we need to leave that possibility of redress as something we are committing ourselves to. And that was definitely the most debated topic. In the end, I think we reached the right decision that from 2019 on, and we'll continue to revisit this. We have our working groups meet every month to talk about the latest opportunity, the latest challenge, the latest aha moment. Do we have a blind spot in our principles? One of the ones we debated really heavily also was, should sustainability be a separate principle, or should that just be part of the responsible? Right now it's part of responsible, but with everything that's happening, that's our next big debate. Do we want to hold up sustainability in particular as a unique principle?
You're talking about kind of energy sustainability and, just like the sustainability of resources.
Absolutely. Right? When you think of AI right now, voracious.
Yeah.
Every liter of water it can get, every joule of energy it can get, every head count of talent it can get, every byte of data, all being subsumed into these large language models. And so just the understanding, what resources did it take for me to train the model, to deploy the model, to maintain the model, and then every single time I inference over that model, how much more am I using? Because in the end, we need to provide to our leadership team, to our shareholders, to our team members, to our customers, and our communities. We need to answer, what did it take? You've just given me a fantastic new shiny AI button on this process I was used to already. You told me this is to save money on the power grid, for example. Well, are we sure that we actually saved more money by the time we've trained and deployed the model than it took that we're hoping to get back? So that transparency of outcomes is something that we really need to have, so that I wanted people to buy into these great AI-driven outcomes in the most challenging problems that we share as communities, whether that's business communities or our own hometowns. Transparency, explainability, all of these things come together as powerful tools to get people to buy in, to allow their data to be represented so that they can be counted, they can find themselves represented in models and be assured that the outcomes that are going to happen are going to be beneficial to them. And I know you Built for Trust is your podcast name here. Yeah. And what I want, not just trust, I want proof. Right, I want transparent proof.
A little trust but verified.
Right. Because unfortunately, trust can be violated, and even the most trustworthy individual can be coerced. So, how do we get to that proof? How do we get to that proof? Built for a proof of trust.
Yeah, well, that is really key, and because this all really comes down to trust. Can you trust like the algorithms? Can you trust the answers that you're getting? From them. As well. And I think, you kind of touched on it, and I wonder, how your model kind of deals with, data. So we had a leadership meeting in this room 2 days ago, and one of the biggest topics was when utilizing, if you're going to use a public, AI service, Gemini, Chat, Lambda, what have you, you ask questions, to it, you provide a response, it provides a response. Who owns that response? And so in a lot of those, that's why a lot of the larger enterprises have kind of, they don't allow use of public, public AI models like that, because even the question itself is proprietary. A lot of companies don't want their questions going into the public domain where it actually others can either view it or have access to it, or it's not part of the public domain because that is an attack vector or it's a vulnerability vector, associated with them. So how are you guys dealing with that in this model?
I mean, that's the truth. Everything is a tell, right? Just the question itself is metadata. The data that's associated with the question is also a rich set of metadata. And we have these systems. They are capable of literally digesting every byte we've ever recorded and constructing a really complex model from that source of information. So certainly for us, no, you're not. If you can use an open public chatbot or a language model, but only if you're using it with non-company data. If you're asking it about the news or the weather, go ahead. But anything that has company information in it, that's why we have a segregated, independent system where we have guarantees from our partners that our information and our data, our questions, our metadata is all being kept out of that model, that it is there. Now, there's a trade-off, right? In that, that means the model isn't improving as I've interacted with, and we'll trade that off, right? So we're making those trade-offs between what we allow the models to do and evolve with our information, what we have separately, and we have both an in-house hosted model as well as the model we get from our general productivity supply team, and so we're finding the right ways. We're finding ways to balance out these questions of security and privacy and company confidentiality with efficiency and the productivity we're all craving and we anticipate seems so tantalizingly close. Yeah. But sometimes we just have to take that one half step back and have that other consideration either for the cybersecurity team, the IT operations team, or the privacy team. Yeah.
No, smart, because that's the right... Not that that's the right answer. That's the answer that we hear most often. And, it's it's restriction. It's kind of putting restrictions, what you can and what you can't use it for. Also, a lot of deployments, if you're a large enough company, that's coming in-house.
Yes.
And so, so you don't have to kind of concern about that, but you can still get the the productivity benefit and value from it, but also you're training it on your own data. That's which is a massive amount of data that every large, like if you're a Fortune 500 company, like the amount of data you produce like every single day around customer interactions, around engineering decisions, just emails flowing around within the organization. All of the inputs that are going into like the system of record systems, whether that's on HR or whether that's on finance or manufacturing or what have you. That's to me, like, for large corporations, it makes sense to have that in-house, because what we've been seeing is that like what is in the minds of a lot of executives right now is that these system of records have essentially, they're all kind of deterministic, meaning like they churn out reports, and all the reports are relatively the same. The inputs are all different depending upon the company that there is, but they all want to see those systems become predictive. And so in order for them to be predictive, they need to be able to ingest data. And so the whole, data governance, what's the schema for that data, how that data gets inputted, and then so that the goal would be is how do we create a digital twin of our operational model, for our corporation. And
so, one of the things about those systems of record that you mentioned that I'll highlight is they're well governed. They have already gone through the cycle of litigation, negotiation, and legislation. And so for us, it's like, I don't want to lose that governance because we've already solved for that problem. How do I use that? Now, the challenge with all those systems of records is often accessing the information is Byzantine. Do you know the particular SQL query string? And maybe one or two of your people know it. Your data scientists might know it. It's not the thing that's off the fingertips of every executive who wants to be able to query not just the one system, but they really want to query across the systems. So for us, understanding how we can use something like a language model, we could try and extract all that data, but then extracting it might actually mean that we have to go through another cycle of negotiation with, for example, with the Workers' Council in some jurisdictions, as opposed to, hey, can I use the language model to take the question that the executive team wants to ask, turn it into those well-formed SQL queries, get that raw data back that has full governance and provenance established, use a language model again and turn that raw data, those knowledge database extracts, which are frankly just that, often all still in capital letters, right? Like some SQL database drop, and recraft it into the work product that team needs now. And so I think finding out how we do that now, eventually, yes, we might be able to get more and more. And certainly our aspiration at Labs has been for years trying to move from systems of hindsight, what happened last quarter, now we have dashboards, right? Systems of insight. What's happening right now? But what we desperately want is foresight.
Yeah.
What is the most likely thing to happen, and how do I prepare an optimal plan against the possible range of potential strategies that could be brought into bear? And you just have that intuitive sense. The answer's in the data. If only I could get to all the data. It's hiding in plain sight, though, because half of it's between the sales organization, half of it's between the human resources organization, some of it's in engineering, hiding in plain sight between the silos. And frankly, we see that same thing in science and science as well.
Yeah.
We're working for several years with the German National Center of Neurodegenerative Disease Research team looking for the cure to Alzheimer's. They're studying 30,000 individuals for 30 years, collecting 1 million years worth of health data. And one of the things they assume is that this is actually a data problem. How do I discern why this family member gets the disease at age 50, this family member does not? They lived in the same hospital. So what are those variations? Why does this neighborhood have more affliction than that? Understanding, knowing that it's probably interstitial. Genomics is at play. Inflammatory medicine at play.
Environmental,
public health, all these aspects. You're looking for that common thread, but it's hiding in plain sight in between the different disciplines. And that's whether it's science or enterprise governance, understanding how we break down those silos, have tools that can look over it, not give up the well-governed systems of record we have, but capitalize on them in a novel way.
Yeah, I like the arc that you described around the system of record. I think it's like having the foresight is one. Also having real predictability is another one. Okay, new product launch, this is what we're thinking about. Let's run that through the model and let's just see, how this digital twin of our operational model is actually going to respond to that and what might be kind of like maybe 2 or 3 possible outcomes, for it. Like, if we can get to that, and I'm sure we will at some point in time, like the economy totally changes, the operational models around businesses totally change, organization structures will change, as well. I'm sure we'll still have silos because we still need, people who understand finance and engineering, manufacturing, and so forth. But I think the decisions and the intelligence that gets laid into an organization will just be so much more profound, and the insights will just be so much greater. And I think, to me, that's the biggest hope from a corporate, point of view on what the value and the benefit of AI is on how does AI kind of operate in the economy, not let alone like all of the kind of the new material sciences. Hopefully we'll see like Spiegel's presentation on day one around cures for cancer and cancer research, which is like mind blowing. Like, there is just so many good things that are on our store. But like, I think your work is super important and maybe overlooked by most because it kind of usually falls into like the province, of a smaller group of people that are really concerned about, having bad outcomes, and so you really have to kind of get that foundation in place right now so that you can allow a lot of this innovation to matriculate, and pour throughout a corporation and then into the overall economy.
Yeah, I think, for me in a nutshell, what you're talking about is governance of complex systems, right? And it doesn't matter if my multinational corporation or a national power grid, everything is so much more dynamic now. It used to be the only question is, do I turn the generator on or off, right? And it is because it's fueled by fossil fuel. Fantastic. It has an on and off switch. I can decide second by second what to do with it. And now we're talking about sustainable resources. Well, turns out I'll need to know when the sun's going to shine or when the wind's going to blow over the next year down to the day, because I'm selling energy futures day by day. I want to also understand how I can predict demand. Perhaps I want to shape demand, but I don't want to shape it in a creepy, dehumanizing way. I want to shape it in, again, getting people to buy in. And then sometimes it'll be, what would really help is if I had a washing machine I loaded up in the morning and when I left for work, and it was told the opportune time to run the load while I was gone. Just in simple things, how do we get all of those systems working in concert? Because we'll assume that although we're also working with the National Ignition Facility at Lawrence Livermore National Labs on fusion energy and using machine learning and AI to help the teams try and achieve fusion. But short of fusion, solving a lot of pesky energy problems for the world, we're not going to get to a post-scarcity society. But getting to one where we minimize waste, and again, with this minimizing waste in the enterprise, in the nation, in the state, in the world, is something I think we can aspire to. But again, we want to understand the full impact because I think you used the words yesterday. We want to use AI to engineer miracles.
Yeah.
And we might remember, chlorofluorocarbons were a miracle in health and food supply chains till they opened a hole in the ozone, right? Tetraethyl lead was a miracle in privatizing and democratizing individual transportation solution till we found lead in babies' teeth, right? So there are these outcomes, and we can be looking at them, but we really want to go in with eyes wide open in broad conversations, especially now that these aren't just machines that we use to amplify individual human aspects of strength or duration or endurance, but it's knowledge work. It is really representing ourselves and hopefully the best of ourselves. And so that's why I think it does raise that question. Can we have this conversation out loud about how we will work? We can't guarantee, but we can sure try hard to ensure those outcomes are available, equitable, and most importantly, sustainable. Because frankly, if something's not sustainable, it's inherently inequitable because we can't afford to let everyone enjoy the benefits, either over geography or eventually over time.
Yeah. Kirk, that was like, I have a bunch more questions, but that was such a great kind of dialogue on the future, I don't want to go past that. I think I want to end on that.
Okay.
That was like really, really great. I had such a great time chatting with you. I know we chatted a little bit yesterday, you know, at the HP booth. I didn't know that you are who you are, you know, until we were up on stage, you know, a little bit earlier today. But I just want to thank you for being here at the summit, for sharing all of your great thought leadership, and also for bringing that work that you've done, you know, to the community as well. So thank you so much.
And thank you, Nick, for convening this. Again, what we need is stakeholders. We need all the stakeholders. And so an event like this where you can bring the technologists, the leadership teams, and have those out loud conversations, I think it's super valuable.
Yeah. Awesome. Great.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you so much. Thank you.